It was nearing the end of October last year, ideal for hiking with its perfectly mild weather, neither too hot nor too cold. I often hiked with a group of friends, but their irregular work schedules made it challenging to coordinate our outings. As a result, I frequently embarked on shorter solo hikes to savor some peace and quiet. Luckily, I had the weekend off, so I decided to revisit a favorite hiking and camping trail nearby. I drove there on a Saturday morning, excited to return to a loop trail I had explored a couple of years earlier. This trail formed a complete circle and took about a day and a half to complete. I arrived at a small gravel parking lot and started my hike from the trailhead. The initial stretch was easy, mostly flat terrain that meandered through expansive grassy fields. As I continued, the path led me into the dense woods, nestled at the foot of a modest mountain. By midday, I was deep within the forest when I noticed a figure moving in the distance. At first, it was hard to tell whether he was approaching or moving away from me. However, as I walked further, it became clear that he was coming towards me. This trail wasn't particularly well traveled. In fact, I don't recall encountering anyone the last time I was here. But considering it was the weekend, it seemed plausible that someone else might have had the same idea to enjoy the outdoors. What struck me as odd was that the man had no backpack, not even a water bottle. Given that I was 6 or 7 hours into the hike, this seemed highly unusual. It's not typical for someone to venture so deep into a trail without basic supplies. As he came within a few feet of me, he waved. I waved back politely, but remained cautious, aware of the isolation of our surroundings. As he walked past me, I heard his footsteps halt and the sound of dirt shifting as though he had turned around. Glancing back, I saw that he had indeed turned to face me, and then he asked me something quite peculiar. "Where's your group at?" His question caught me off guard. I wondered if he somehow knew I usually hiked with friends, or if he was merely trying to ascertain if I was alone. Either way, his inquiry unsettled me and sent a wave of nervousness through me. Thinking quickly, I told him that my group was just a couple of minutes behind me. I couldn't think of a safer response, as I certainly didn't want to reveal that I was alone. He simply said, "Good," gave a smile, and resumed walking. The interaction left me feeling uneasy as I watched him disappear down the path. After the unsettling encounter, I continued walking in the opposite direction, heading deeper into the trail. As I hiked, my mind kept replaying the strange interaction with the man who had no backpack. The more I thought about it, the more it troubled me, especially considering how far we were from the trailhead. To ease my anxiety, I decided to set up camp a bit off the main path. After walking about a half-mile away from the trail, I found a nice flat area where I pitched my small tent. With the sun beginning to set, I sat outside my tent, attempting to relax and clear my mind of any thoughts about the man I had met. I had brought a pre-packed lunch for the trip, which I ate before trying to settle down for the night inside my tent. Lying in my tent, sleep eluded me for over an hour. Just as I started to feel a hint of drowsiness, I was jolted alert by the sound of footsteps crunching through the leaves behind my tent. The unexpected noise shattered the quiet of the evening, filling me with a sense of dread. I lay frozen in my tent, my heart pounding as the sound of footsteps approached. I tried to convince myself it was likely just an animal, but the distinct, deliberate sound of human steps was unmistakable. The footsteps seemed to be about 15 to 20 feet away when they abruptly stopped. Time slowed as I lay there, barely breathing. eerie. I was convinced whoever it was must still be nearby, because I hadn't heard the sound of their departure, which would have faded gradually. As the hours dragged on, filled with anxious anticipation, dawn began to break. Exhausted and unnerved, I debated my next move. The lack of continued footsteps made me wonder if perhaps I had missed the sound of the person leaving, but I couldn't shake the feeling of a nearby presence. Knowing I couldn't stay there indefinitely, and with the first light of day providing a semblance of safety, I decided it was time to pack up and leave the area as quietly and quickly as possible. I cautiously unzipped the tent and lifted the flap just enough to peek outside. Everything seemed calm, and I saw no signs of anyone around. The quiet was almost deafening, and the dense trees limited my view. But from what I could make out, it appeared I was alone. After a few minutes of scanning the area, I started to pack up my tent, constantly looking over my shoulder. I was on high alert, and every little noise had me on edge. Once everything was packed, I attached my tent to my backpack and began to hurry back towards the trail. However, I hadn't gone far when something caught my eye. There, in the dirt just behind a tree near where my tent had been, were clear footprints. The sight of them made my heart race even faster, confirming my fear that someone had indeed been lurking nearby while I slept. In a panic, I didn't bother to search for any additional signs of the intruder as I sprinted towards the trail. Fear coursed through me, knowing that someone had been lurking in the shadows of this isolated forest, far from any help. As I reached the path, I wasted no time in retracing my steps, heading back the way I had come. Although continuing forward might have been quicker, I couldn't shake the feeling that whoever had been watching me might still be waiting ahead. Fortunately, the rest of the journey back to my car was uneventful, albeit nerve-wracking. It wasn't until nearly sunset that I finally reached my vehicle, feeling an immense sense of relief wash over me. The ordeal was over, but the memory of those tense moments in the forest would stay with me for a long time. After my harrowing experience in the forest, I wasted no time in sharing the unsettling encounter with my friends. I recounted the strange man's appearance, his peculiar questions, and the chilling sound of footsteps near my tent. Their reactions ranged from disbelief to concern, but all agreed that I had been fortunate to escape unscathed. Feeling unsettled by the incident, I decided to report it to the authorities. I reached out to the police, detailing the suspicious activity I had witnessed on the trail. Unfortunately, despite my efforts, there wasn't much that could be done about it. The mystery of the strange man's intentions remained unsolved, leaving me with a lingering sense of unease. Since that day, I've become much more cautious when venturing into the wilderness. Rarely do I embark on hikes or camping trips without the safety net of my friends by my side. The experience has left a lasting impact on me, serving as a constant reminder of the potential dangers lurking in remote areas. As for the true intentions of the mysterious stranger, I'll never know for sure. And while I hope that nobody else has to endure a similar ordeal, I can't shake the feeling of uncertainty that lingers in the back of my mind.